Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. We are back with 𝗤𝗏𝗙 𝗔𝗐 and we are going to give you a lot of food for thought. What exactly is impeding India's progress now? Are India's hands tied down? If so, by which country or countries? And what is the status of the United States-India trade deal? Let's welcome 𝗤𝗏𝗙 𝗔𝗐. Sridharji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel. How are you, sir?
Namaskar ji, namaskaram. I'm doing very good, very good. Dhanyavadagalu. So very happy to be here on Tuesday morning, Tuesday evening, depending on where people are. Very happy to be here, Sree.
Sir, you are 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏𝗏 Suttrum Valiban, sir. You are the young man who travels the world. Every day I see you from a different location. I don't know how you keep it up. Salute. I'm not going to reveal where you are, but you are somewhere in the world. That's for sure. Who knows? You might be on the next trip to Mars with Elon Musk. That's also a possibility. Let's jump right in, sir. Yeah, let's jump right in. Bravado, or is there substance behind Iran's swearing that it will continue to enrich uranium? Sir, if there was no radiation, you can also make the argument that there was no nuclear enrichment at all. Forget about hiding nuclear enrichment. What if there was no nuclear enrichment at all?
I think it's you've kind of thrown open the salvo. So I think, well, there's lots of things that's happened in the past 1 week, and each statement contradicting the other. For example, I think if you recall, going back 2 or 3 episodes ago, we said, Trump, in pursuit of his Nobel Peace Prize, brought about a truce between Israel and Iran, and both of them claimed victory. And they said, they will hold on to the ceasefire. Then the problems started. Each side began to throw kind of waters, saying that both sides are violating the ceasefire norms. That's number one. Number two, somewhere around that there was a leakage. There was a leaked report, which is namely to say that United States did not take out all of the uranium or nuclear capabilities of Iran, and people kind of again started to say that to discredit such a report came out. Then the United Nations made a statement that Iran is still capable of enriching its uranium to achieve the nuclear milestone. Then you have Trump and others gloating away to say that they bombed the hell out of the Iranians, and putting the program months, years behind, and any attempt by them to pursue a nuclear course or any wind that they get that they will pursue a nuclear course will be met with a fierce response, and they want the Iranians. And in the meanwhile, Iranians have issued a number of statements, including the foreign minister, which is to say that they reserve the right to enrich the uranium. They will not be inviting the UN inspectors. They will not participate in any United Nations dialogue. They retain the right to pursue the course in defense of their country. In the meanwhile, Israel has kept quiet, but they've been silently working away on the Gaza side, and they have also indicated that the regime change is the only option, and they were contemplating the past Shah of Iran, that heritage in terms of assuming the power. So the net result of all this, lots of bombs have been thrown, lots of ammunition has been used. There was a show and bravado, but what you are seeing right now is that this could probably flare up at any point of time. And I believe that is the reason why Mr. Netanyahu has been invited to the White House. In the next 5 to 6 days, he will be in Washington, D.C., and he will be the guest of President Trump. Sree.
Thank you so much, sir. So I was saying it in jest. You can't have 15,000 actively operating centrifuges in Natanz alone and 2,700 actively operating centrifuges in Fordo and not create something. So clearly they also have enrichment being done for their power business, nuclear power generation. That neither Israel nor United States touched those plants. Those are left open. So clearly there is something. Whether it is hidden or destroyed but not visible, destroyed but not detectable? These are all questions that will probably find their answers in the days and weeks to come. But I know that if I have to choose between whose intel is better, I would any day go to Mossad's intel and say that is perhaps the most accurate. And there is reason for this. Okay, viewers, you have to look at our animated thing called Shukracharya, where our Shastras, our Vedic Shastras say that Zarathustra, the disciple of Shukracharya, did the whole Zoroastrianism, and that Judaism is an offshoot of that, where they did not accept everything that was done there, and they went on a subset. In other words, this is our Shastras. Our Israeli brothers and sisters may disagree, but that is the connect between Persia and Israel. Anyway, this is according to our Shastra, so I have to always qualify this. You can go read the reference links in that video to understand where I'm coming from. Mossad probably has more ins, and they know what exactly it is. So at least at this point of time, I think we'll have to go with them. Sir, on 7th, Trump is going to host Netanyahu. So one topic will be Iran. The second topic is, my guess, sir, is they are trying to build a buffer zone between Hamas and Israeli territory, just like the way they have done between the Litani River and the northern border of Israel. They want to do the same thing on the on the southern side. They want a buffer so that 𝗠𝗢𝗏 or something like that, that is the line they cut off, and above that is a buffer zone where they don't want anybody to live. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that if one has to go by the kind of logical extension of what one wants to accomplish, Sree, I believe your approach and your thinking is very plausible. But I also feel that Israel is fed up with Hamas and Gaza. Israel is fed up. I think that they have paid a very heavy price, and they believe that it's a ticking time bomb. So they, in my view, they would like to occupy all of the Gaza and administer it. Okay, nothing short of it. They would like to take over and administer all of Gaza. No more this Palestine and Gaza being independent. And they believe that's the root cause of the problem. And so that is the message that that Netanyahu is going to give. Okay, I'm not going to accept another incident. I'm not going to make Israel suffer. I would like, you told pre-election that Gaza, there is no two-state solution. Remember, this is from the Trump administration. So suddenly you can't change June and say there's a two-state. And second, Gaza is no longer to be administered by some parties. Be given a chance. It hasn't worked. And we have already started to clear the southern part of the Gaza, and it will be totally under the control. And then let us work towards it. I think that's one important discussion that will happen. Second, that discussion that would happen is, in the event something they detect, because Mossad, as you rightly said, is very much inside Iran. They're operating from inside Iran. And they're going to say, if they think that they need to move, they're going to move, and they do not want to see any objection from the US administration side. And I think he's going to get some kind of a assurance from Trump that he's not going to agree to another ceasefire, and he would like to complete the mission. And third, I think, which is more his personal agenda, he doesn't want to have this case hanging over his head and seeking all support from Trump. So this is a much broader kind of strategic discussion. And I think he's going to again re-emphasize, if peace is to be accomplished, then there's only one solution, which is namely that they must be given the free hand and making sure they're put down. And Gaza is where the trouble is coming from. Obviously, Hezbollah from Lebanon. So these are the two territories. As far as the Iran is concerned, they believe that they have complete control by being inside Iran, Sree.
Thank you so much, sir. Let's go to the next slide, please. This is a big one. This is a big one, viewers. See, many of us get emotional about this and say, we should stop trading with Russia. We should stop trading with China. We should stop trading with US. US cannot be trusted. There's one lobby that will give you 10 comments. Today also, they'll give you the same law. US can't be trusted. Numbers can be trusted. And the numbers tell us a story. And that's what 𝗤𝗏𝗙 is going to tell us. Over to you, 𝗤𝗏𝗙.
Great. Thank you so much. So I think that it's important to our viewers. Of course, we will be branded as American agents, which we will gracefully and greatly accept that. But what you want to be, you can be your own judges. India's trade has dramatically increased. One day we will do a story as to how India has been kept in the back burner for over 75 years in terms of its evolution and development. Okay, but let's look at the numbers, okay, from the FY25 and FY24. So if I take a look at the 25 numbers, India's exports, astonishing, $820 billion. $820 billion, okay? Imports simultaneously have grown. Imports has been India's story. Import everything, most notably from China or most notably from Russia. United States is a capitalistic state, and it always supports Pakistan, so ignore it. But having said that, we'll go down the numbers. So if you take a look at the numbers, but the total trade is roughly around $1.7 trillion between exports and imports in terms of bilateral. Now, this was around less than it's about $1.6 trillion in FY24. But take a look at the numbers. The numbers are that the imports continues to rise, and we have a deficit as we speak, close to $94 billion on FY25. Now, who are the top three trading partners? Who are the top three players? I'm excluding UAE here, but we have brought Russia here. USA is the number one trading partner. What is the USA's number? About $132 billion. It can go to about 150, 160, but they're targeting bilateral trade of about $500 billion. $131 billion. Look at the exports. $86 billion of exports and $45 billion of imports. And a trade surplus. India has a trade surplus of $41 billion. Okay. And amongst the top 10 trading partners we will talk about in a minute, only one country has, amongst the top 10 players, India has trade surplus with. That's with United States. We have not brought the FDI investments that United States produces relative to many other countries, but that's a separate discussion by itself. Now let's go to China. Look at the exports to China. It was 17 billion in FY24, reduced to 14 billion. Reduced. Okay. Now look at the imports in FY24, 101 billion in FY imports, and then it's about 113.45 billion imports in 25. That is $100 billion of close to trade deficit with China. 100 billion. Okay. How does China control this journey? We'll discuss that in a minute. Now let's go to Russia. That's even more a stark number. Okay. Russia was less than $15 billion when we were doing DGI programs about 4 years ago. And we're saying Russia is a small player. Today, Russia's trade has grown close to $69 billion. Okay, $69 billion bilateral trade, imports and exports with Russia. Only $5 billion, in my view, it's a peanut in the peanut gallery, and $64 billion of imports, comprising of three important things. 1, oil. 2, defense. And 3, fertilizers and chemicals. Okay, which drives the agro production and the farming in India. I repeat, bilateral trade with Russia is now close to $70 billion, which puts it as the top 5 trading partner. Where was it? It was about $10 to $12 billion or $15 billion few years ago. So clearly, Russia is making its way. People in the comment section ask the question, why should India be in BRICS and why should India be in SCO? India has to be in BRICS. India has to be in SCO because it needs to figure out what the Chinese and the Russians are talking at these meetings, given the huge exposure that India has to these two nations. Okay, that's a key message that we want to deliver. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, out of the $915 billion of imports which you saw in the previous slide, two countries drive bulk of it, 170 billion. 170 billion of India's imports come from two countries. Which are the two countries? China and Russia. Okay, now let's go to China, which is the next slide. Okay, China has now created an intricate trade web. Okay, it controls between Russia and China, exports is $20 billion. $20 billion exports. $170 billion imports, $150 billion deficit. Now coming to China, if Russia controls energy and defense, China controls four important areas: electronics, many kind of spare parts that you have on your mobile phones, your QR code readers, which is extensively used, microelectronics, all comes from China. Number two, the pharmaceutical APIs, which drives the pharma industry, comes from China. The industrial chemicals comes from China, which basically also funnels the fertilizer as well as the local what you call industrial chemicals, which plows the manufacturing in India. All of it comes from China. So therefore, electronics, agro fertilizers, industrial chemicals, and industrial electronics, all controlled by China. So what is China attempting to do? I think we covered one of the things China is attempting to do through Pakistan proxy is to actually go after the industrial hub, from the perspective of making it less competitive threat to China, because a lot of industries quitting China are going to India. So number one. Number two, which is even more significant, they control the upstream supply chains. There's a latest analysis that's been written and produced that China is now using the supply chains kind of tweaking as a tool to ensure that the supply chains are thwarted in terms of on-time delivery of what is needed to drive India's manufacturing. They would like to control it through manipulation of supply chains and logistics. And finally, India also needs rare earths for its EV, and given the automotive manufacturing is shifting to India, part of it out of China and part of it out of other locations, that's another industry they want to choke. This is the intricate web that China has woven while imports continues to rise on one side and their geopolitical threats continue to also rise, be it on the northern border or be it on the western border. How India is going to get out of this mess, only time will tell. This is the India-China problem, and the numbers tell you, and we're not reducing. You have seen the numbers. The imports is only growing and the exports is contracting. This is the state of the story. Okay, look at the Chinese kind of imports. It's gone by more than 11%, 101 billion to $113 billion or 114. Look at the exports, 16.66. It has contracted by more than 10% to 14.25. It can completely wipe out because India's exports is non-material and Russia's and India's exports to Russia is non-material. But their imports, the imports that India makes from these two nations are very material across all fronts: industrial, agro, industrial chemical, pharma, electronics, and defense. This is the level of exposure that India has put itself into And that's why people keep talking, de-dollarize, de-dollarize, de-dollarize. You keep on de-dollarization. Okay, even the $50 billion FDI investments will come out, and India also can reduce the number of planes going to United States. They can have all these planes going to Beijing and Moscow. Because unfortunately, I don't see in Bangalore airports a lot of people going to Beijing or Moscow, Sree. I see all of them going to your state, California.
Apologies on that slide. A couple of typos. We did this in a hurry, and apologies for that. But I think you understand where we are going from. India-Russia trade deal. So, Sridharji, before we go to Russia, I have to tell one more thing. Yesterday, I put out a monologue on fentanyl. Now, unfortunately for India, China is routing much of its fentanyl through India. You know the reason for that, Sridharji? Because there is less checking of inbound imports from India into the United States. So they're trying to sneak it in. So these guys, there is a movie called Twins. I don't know if you have seen that movie, sir. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. One really well-built, muscular guy, and the other guy short and squat. And these two twins are born out of a biological experiment where all the goodness goes to one guy and all the things that can be bad goes to the other guy. But they are twins and they like each other. They look out for each other. Hilarious movie. So China is essentially treating India like a doormat. I'm sorry to say this thing, viewers. I know some of us, like China a lot. In fact, there are political parties which take their directions from China, including who shall be their general secretary. But I know you won't understand. You won't understand, and you won't agree with me. It doesn't matter. The truth is the truth. It doesn't change. So, point I'm trying to make is China is the bigger danger amongst China and Russia, because to some extent Russia is also beholden to China. I don't know what the game plan there is. India should actively work to break that nexus, in my opinion. Over to you, sir, for India-Russia trade deal.
Why? I think that you hit the nail on the head, which is namely you have Shashi Tharoor flying to Russia. You have the defense minister going to Russia. You have external affairs, you have the national security advisor going to China, and you have the external affairs minister now in United States. But fortunately, he also went to Russia and met with Vladimir Putin. This number and the dependence of Russian oil and Russian machinery constantly sends India to Russia to go on pleading and making the case that India is under terror threat and terrorists are coming from Pakistan. Please stand with us and condemn. And to also offer them, as if Russia doesn't know where the terrorists are coming from. As if, how many times they need to go and plead with the Russians and ask for their support that in international forums, right? Which is to say, hey, these are the guys. Hey, these are the guys. We need your support. Because India is beholden to Russia for its critical juice, namely oil. And second, if Russians don't supply the spares and don't meet the delivery obligations, even Indian defense industry, because most of the equipment, of course, now we have France and US and Israel and Germany and so on. But still, a vast chunk of India's machinery comes from Russia, Sree, and also if agriculture and farming needs to continue to kind of sustain and proceed, they need the fertilizers and chemical from Russia. It's in a very pitiable state that India is in. Again, we have covered this in a few programs ago, that if you take a look at the Russia-India GDP economic chart, for a considerable period, India was playing second fiddle to Russia on the economic GDP charts. It's only in the recent years, most notably under Modi's era, that India has said enough is enough, and it has tried to exert and assert its independence and move forward. So this is, whether you want to accept it, whether you want to deny it, that the facts are, those are the numbers, that's the data. Go back and study for yourself. We may be here and there a little bit off, but the story is these numbers are from very, very authentic sources, and we have put up the numbers for you to understand as to why India needs to play even inside an enemy tent, because they need to figure out what the hell these people are talking. This whole BRICS is to basically destabilize the Indian investments through dollars flowing into the Indian ecosystem. That's the whole kind of objective. Please check how much China has invested, FDI. And please check how much Russia has invested as an FDI. How much? Compare.
Sridharji, there was a problem with Chinese investment on FDI. They were basically cooking the books. I mean, I'm going to be bold and say this thing because we have published this in PGurus.com. They used to have an Oppo manufacturing facility in India. They used to have, I think, Vivo or something like that, another cell phone manufacturing facility in India. In both these cases, they were trying to take the profits, offset them against so-called intellectual property that they owned in Dubai, that these companies had to pay those. All sham. What original thing do you have in China? You are just trying to put together everything with free labor or cheap labor. What else do you have? All the patents are owned in United States or in Europe or in Japan as far as cell phone miniaturization and other things go. So these guys, so FDI from China is a little bit of a mixed bag, Sridharji. In fact, some of the big bandicoots are still hiding, sir. And I've said my throat has gone dry about why NSE, the National Stock Exchange, should not go public. Nobody's listening. Let's go on, sir. Let's go to the next one. Wang Yi. Say, what the heck is this, sir? Wang Yi wants to visit EU around the same time as India is having its Quad moment, sir.
Exactly. So I think Dr. Wang Yi, we call him the wolf diplomat. So the wolf diplomat, again, we covered this, Sriji. His goal is to go and rattle the cage and basically tell, and then you deliver a soft blow. So he's very aggressive and assertive. And the only two guys who knows how to deal with Wang Yi is 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗥𝗏 and Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar. They know how to kind of work with him. He knows how to kind of work with him as well. So fortunately, India is very fortunate to have those two stalwarts trying to help India and Modi ji. But anyway, why is he? Now, it's very strange. As we speak, the meetings have just started between the Quad ministers, foreign ministers, Marco Rubio, the external Subramaniam Jaishankar is Australian and Japanese counterpart. So what are the four key agenda items that they are discussing? It's all about China on two fronts. One, it is on South China Sea incursions. And two is what's the trade negotiations that are going on with China, which could upset the other three other three partners of Quad. So that's the second important agenda that is on the table. Obviously, the other two items, one is, of course, the Middle Eastern tensions, and then, of course, the Russia-Ukraine war. So these are the topics that these people are discussing. While this is going on, so Dr. Wang Yi, after the visit of the deputy foreign minister to Paris and signing some kind of a deal with the French, now he wants EU and EU foreign ministers to have a multilateral, that means very similar to a FTA between United States and EU. He wants to have a very similar China-EU agreement. So it's very interesting that there is this kind of very competitive battle. And what he is going to put on the table, one never knows. Again, China has never invested FDI. It builds, operates, manages factories, and with no kind of with impunity, even in Europe, to the detriment of the EU industries, which the EU many a times have raised a red flag about. And of course, now EU and United States are working together to what you call the China plus one strategy, which is namely we need to have an alternative. So it'll be interesting to see how Dr. Wang Yi succeeds in persuading, while most recently you had President Trump attend the NATO meet and walk away with success right at the same time, Sree, meet going on in China.
Thank you so much, sir. Let's go to the next one. First half of 2025, how has it been? Is the Dow and other market indices in US still weighed heavily by the Mag 7 stocks, sir?
No, I think that the markets have performed well. The technology stocks have performed. NASDAQ has grown, I think, around 8%. S&P has grown around 6%. and S&P has grown around 6%. Dow has grown around less than 5%. So the markets have all positively calibrated, notwithstanding the what you call doom and zoom kind of a syndrome that everybody was forecasting as a result of tariffs. And I think that tariff game has been played reasonably well. Markets around the world has also performed well, whether it is Europe, whether it is Asia. So generally, there's been positive movement in markets in anticipation of resolution on tariffs and capital flows, and Fed rate cuts. At least 2 rate cuts people are anticipating from the Fed in the second half of the year. All this has kind of flown positively within the context of the markets. Now, if we take a look at the bond market, the prime rate has not gone past 4.5. They're still around the 4.3% mark, and Trump is pushing hard for the Treasury Secretary to make a rate cut of 50 basis points, not 25 basis points. The FX markets has also been stable, notwithstanding the dollar threat as a result of the tariffs. So the dollar has not kind of crashed. So you have Japanese yen around 1.45, you have euro around 1.18, and then the British pound around 1.3 to 1.3. So therefore, even the currency markets, whether it is the currency, whether it is the FX, whether it is the currency, bond, and equities, we have seen fair stability. Oil has not gone past 70. It has clawed its way back to about $62 to $65, and Trump announced more than 45 renewal of new leases for much more oil extraction, and so therefore oil prices have also kind of a little bit stabilized. The gold has not gone past $3,500. It's hanging around 3.2, and of course our favorite crypto Bitcoin is around $107. There is another
$107,000, sir.
Sorry,
$107,000.
Yeah, $107,000. And I think we will cover that separately. None of the other crypto coins have not. Stable coins are back in the game. There's a much more detailed story which Sree and I will do around the crypto reserves, and what exactly the regulation that is coming for digital assets. So overall,
we're talking about Genius Act.
Yeah. Overall, Sree, I mean, there's another poll that came out. That poll indicates, confirms that obviously Modi as the most popular leader, and President Trump is in top 4. So he is not fallen apart. And whether you guys think that we are supporting Trump or we're not supporting Trump, or whether they're pushing American barrel, the story is that go and look at the global. These are not American polls. These are global polls which indicate obviously Modi as number 1 and Trump is hanging there in number 4. So overall, somehow whether this is a lull before the storm, we don't know. But certainly as things stand, I think that things both on the market side and the geopolitics side, we are beginning to see some sense of sanity and stability. And I don't believe Iran is, notwithstanding Iran's what you call bravado, I don't think they're going to do anything silly to further inflict damage on themselves, Sree.
Sir, one thing that keeps coming back is that who is in control in Iran? Perhaps it's the mullahs have been just, they are bunkered up. They're not able to come out, which means that whatever they are saying is just like somebody writes a letter or a piece of paper and then that goes out. Somebody using the mullah's handle and putting something out. They are not seen for a while. So that's a very interesting thing. So if that's not the person who did the agreement, ceasefire, then who is actually in control in Iran? In other words, has the change already happened quietly without much fanfare? That's a question that we will be trying to answer in our next few guests. And this is the guessing game right now. Until somebody for sure come out and say, okay, that era is over, this is a new era, and so on. We'll have to keep guessing, but we will do our best to give you the right data. Sir, we have a few questions from our viewers. If you don't mind, can we take them now?
Sure, Jay.
The link to Shukracharya video is available in the chat section. Those of you who wanted to have it, it's available there. You can click on it. Srinivasan wants to know, now we can conclude that India and US have sealed the trade deal before 8 July mutually to benefit both countries. What about agri and dairy? India was resisting to open up. Thank you, sir.
Both India is going to open up, both as well as agro and dairy. The only thing that they wanted to have on the agro is the GMO is the sticking point, and the dairy is concerned the animal fats, because Americans did not want to reprocess and export their dairy. And India has said, I think they have come to some resolution on the dairy side. What exactly the specific resolution we'll get to know very soon. But they have. But the only sticking point is GMO. I believe that there will be an announcement that Trump himself and Trump's press secretary has also announced that we will be announcing the deal in. They will not make that kind of a statement to the world media if they're not sure.
Sridharji, see, you may blame California for a lot of things, but you can also praise California for selling raw milk in grocery stores. I get raw milk, sir, raw milk, nothing added, nothing added.
Yeah. California is a wonderful state, G, and it is the agro. It's the only thing is it is ruled by some Looney Tunes. That's about it. Other than that, I think it's a wonderful state.
Tom and Jerry in control, sir. Tom and Jerry in control.
Okay.
Milban Cherian wants to know, does any country in the world trust China anymore?
Of course, North Korea. Trust them.
Sir, even that is doubtful, sir. They have switched to Russian satellites for their transmissions now.
Oh my God. I know they have to, because they sent a lot of Korean soldiers to fight on behalf of the Russians. I don't know whether we didn't cover that news because it didn't fit into, we can cover that. The North Korean president received the bodies wrapped in North Korean flags, the coffins, who all kind of laid a wreath for fighting on behalf of North Korea with the Russians. So it's now fairly public that the North Koreans, hundreds of North Korean soldiers were fighting with the Russians. That also tells you the problem, deep-rooted problem within Russia, Sree. So that's the story is that Pakistan calls them their all-weather partner, Sree, all-weather partner.
Next one, please. Sabyasachi Semal wants to know, will big beautiful bill see the light of the day? Will it be the downfall of Trump? I think it's almost done, right?
It's almost done.
Few things here and there. Yeah, few things here and there.
It has to go back to the House for the ratification, because there's been some changes. Then it'll go to President Trump. Yes, it'll add $3 trillion. But in the absence of rate cut, with inflation still around the 3% mark, they need to get money back into the hands of the people, and tax cuts is being used. They also believe that this tariff resolution will bring about some amount of liquidity to fund the programs.
Yeah, Sabyasachi, you have to understand that senators come with massive egos that need constant massaging. So once that happens, then everything else becomes okay. Next one, please. Ramesh Channareddy wants to know, Sree, how high now evident that we shouldn't bother day-to-day Trump talk? In a nutshell, over 3 months, it makes sense to what Trump is working on. Agree Trump's policies will benefit and are pro-India. Sridharji, your thoughts?
Well, I think the fact that he is announced he wants to do a deal with India. Remember, he has put India and China ahead of Japan. Japan is one of the more strategic partners. He's got a deal with EU. He's got a deal with UK. He's got a deal with India. He's got a deal with China. He's got a deal with his strategic ally, namely Israel. He's got a deal with Middle East. The Middle Eastern countries are putting close to $3 trillion. So thus far, and he's also made it clear, I won't be doing deal with 900 countries. So not 900. I won't be doing deal with 99 countries. We have to pick and choose because there's only a limited time window. So I think he will cut deals with countries like Taiwan. He'll cut deals with Vietnam. But I think he's getting, and he's been Look what he did to Canada. At the moment he said, you're going to do a digital services tax on us, we don't want to talk to you anymore. Next day, they said, no digital services tax. They're back at the negotiating table to cut a deal. This is Canada. Okay. Same thing is going to happen to Japan. Japan said, you want to block us from selling rice to you. You need a lot of rice. Okay. Go back to your drawing board and come back to us. Then we'll start the discussion. So he's making some brave statements. Japan is sitting. It is not, Mr. Abe, Shinzo Abe, but it is someone else. If it was Abe, then the deal would have been done by now, Shriji.
Thank you so much, sir. And wonderful session. Viewers, a new perspective on some of the things that we are probably not quite aware of. For example, why India can't stop importing from China unless it has its own Atmanirbhar plans in place. Actually, some of these things were in India that went out there, and that was all UPA. Nobody asks these questions, and we are always here living in the present. See, some of these are big ships, takes a long time to turn back. That's what I say it, but certainly green shoots everywhere in India, sir. Thank you so much, and viewers will be back again with Sridharji very soon. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening or have a wonderful day where you are.